They said, "Make it come alive." And he did. Through a strange kind of magic, Enosh took a handful of dirt, shaped it into a figure, and somehow it began to breathe. It opened its eyes. It moved. No one had ever seen anything like it. People stared in shock and fear. Was this some kind of power, a trick, a miracle? They didn't know. But instead of being amazed at the wonder of life, they bowed down to the dirt man. And from that moment, a shadow began to creep over the world. A long time ago, just 235 years after the world was created, Enosh came into the world. Trees were tall and wild, animals roamed freely, and the sky was wide and open. There were no buildings, no cars, no electricity, just nature and people figuring out how to live. Now, Enosh wasn't just any kid. He was the third generation of humanity, Adam and Eve, then their son Seth, then Enosh. He probably grew up hearing stories about the Garden of Eden, the snake, and what it was like when everything was perfect. And just like Adam and Seth, Enosh was created in the beautiful image of God. But something changed after he was born. Slowly, people began to drift away from what was good. From Enosh's time on, people stopped looking like Adam and Eve in the image of God. They began to be born to look less human. Some even started to resemble apes, and even a little scary. The world was slipping away from its perfect image. During Enosh's time, people first started to pray. Before then, people believed in God, but they didn't really talk to him or ask him for things. In Enosh's days, people began calling out to God by name. It was the start of prayer, the way we talk to God today. Some people used it for good, asking for help or saying thank you, but others got confused and prayed to the sun or moon, thinking they were the ones God put in charge. That's how things started to go off track. That was the beginning of what we now call idolatry. People started worshiping things that weren't God. At first, they just showed respect to things like the sun and moon, thinking those were God's helpers. But soon, they forgot all about God. They made statues and even worshipped things they built with their own hands. God was not happy, and the people were punished. God distanced himself from the people, and the world started to become worse. Another thing that started in Enosh's times was magic. That's right, magicians and sorcery started to appear all around the world. Did you ever wonder what the first magic trick ever was? Well, listen to this. One day, people came to Enosh and started asking questions. Who's your father? Seth. And your grandfather? Adam. And who was Adam's father? He didn't have one, Enosh said. God made him from dirt, then breathed life into him. Wow, they said. Show us how. Well, we know the story of how God created Adam. He took a piece of clay, shaped it like Adam, and God blew his soul into his nostrils, and that's how Adam was made. Enosh was no God, but he too picked up a handful of dirt, shaped it like a man, and blew into its nostrils, not expecting anything to happen. But somehow, it came alive. It was magic. But what is magic? God created evil spirits that can do things using the power of evil. And that is what created this man of dirt that Enosh created. These evil spirits don't exist today, and real magic doesn't exist either. But it did back in those days. The people that were watching were amazed by what they saw. But instead of being amazed by the power of creation, the people did something shocking. They bowed down to it. They called it a god. They actually worshipped a dirt man that Enosh had made. That was the moment when idolatry really took off, and it didn't stop. Things got bad, really bad. The world began to change even more in different ways during the times of Enosh. The mountains became rocky and hard to climb. People who died started to decay quickly. Before Enosh, people that passed away, their bodies were intact for a long time. People's faces began to look less human. Some even started to resemble apes. Demons, yes, real scary ones, began to haunt people and cause trouble. People were acting wicked and turned their backs on God. God had enough and a flood came. Most people know about the great flood in the days of Noah. But did you know there was a pretty great flood way before that, during Enosh's time? As punishment for how wicked people had become, the sea rose up and flooded a third of the world. Imagine entire villages underwater. This wasn't a little rainstorm. It was huge, and it was meant to be a warning. But the people didn't change. And if that wasn't enough, food started to run out. Farming became nearly impossible. The ground didn't grow crops like before. People were hungry. It wasn't until Noah came along hundreds of years later that someone invented the plow to help fix that. Now, was Enosh a bad guy? We don't know that. He may have been one of the good ones. He didn't start all the trouble, but it happened while he was alive. He lived a long time, 905 years, and saw the world become a darker, harder place. We don't know every detail about what Enosh did, day to day, but we know this: he stood between the perfect world of Adam and the broken world that came after. He watched everything change and maybe tried to remind people of what they had lost. He was part of an amazing family, connected to the very first humans ever. And his story reminds us how quickly people can forget what's right and how important it is to remember where we came from. So, what do you think Enosh felt, seeing the world fall apart? Would you have stood up and done something? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more wild and wonderful stories from the beginning of time. And let us know, who should we talk about next?